Attorney General Martha Coakley. Today, a Suffolk Grand Jury returned 10 indictments against Richard Vitale, 63 years old, of Boston, and WN Advisors, a limited liability corporation that's owned and controlled by Richard Vitale. There are 7 charges against Mr. Vitale. There are 3 against WN Advisors, and they are based as a result of an investigation beginning by the Attorney General's office back in June of this year, when we received a referral from the Secretary of State relating to alleged lobbying activity by Richard Vitale on behalf of the Mass Association of Ticket Brokers. Let me just explain those 7 charges against Mr. Vitale. He faces 2 counts of failure to register as a legislative agent, also known as a lobbyist. That's a violation of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 3, Section 41. He is facing 1 count of an illegal agreement for compensation contingent on passage of legislation. I can talk a little bit more about that later. He faces 4 counts of making campaign contributions over $200. The law prohibits any lobbyist or legislative agent from, in a given year, giving to any either candidate or elected official over $200. The 3 charges against WN Advisors follow those charges. 2 are failure to register as a legislative agent, and 1 count for entering into an illegal contingency agreement, that is, asking for or attempting to receive monies in the event of success of passage of legislation. Let me just give you a quick background on this. The legislation in Massachusetts that regulates the resale of tickets for sporting events, public events, what are called public amusement, has not kept pace with the ticket prices, with the technology, with the number of events and type of events. In fact, the law was passed in 1924, and it requires, if there is to be a resale, that they can be resold only for face value plus $2. Again, outdated, unenforced, and relatively unenforceable. Most in the Commonwealth would agree that that legislation needed some updating to bring the statute into the 21st century. The Mass Association of Ticket Brokers was interested in promoting a change in the law, and they wanted to address legislation that would update that law, and particularly they had particular interests in how the legislation would look. We allege in these indictments that Richard Vitale and WN Advisors, after entering into a contract with the Mass Association of Ticket Brokers, was paid a total of $60,000. The contract, in fact, allowed up to $90,000, although $60,000 was paid. We allege that Richard Vitale communicated on several occasions and in different ways with both the Speaker of the House, Salvatore De Masi, and the Speaker pro tempore, Thomas Petrolotti, in order to both promote and shape this legislation around the resale of tickets in Massachusetts. In October of 2007, that legislation passed the House. It did not, however, make progress in the Senate, and it is currently stalled and, in fact, will expire at the end of this session. We allege that Richard Vitale and WN Advisors were required to and failed to publicly register as an entity or an individual who's acting as a lobbyist to the legislature. Why is this important? Because we require transparency both for the public as to how legislation is being influenced and shaped, and also to legislators. The law requires that those who are lobbyists, who are acting on behalf of others for payment, cannot donate more than $200 per calendar year to candidates or to legislators. And most importantly, if you are registered as a lobbyist, there are other consequent obligations. You have to, for instance, file an itemized statement twice a year under oath that lists all of your contributions and all of your expenditures that have been incurred or paid for on your behalf or on behalf of any members of the General Court, any members of the officers and employees of the legislature. And particularly in a state where we do not require a legislature to follow the open meeting law or to be subject to public requests of information, what are commonly called freedom of information requests, it is particularly important that the public and the members of the legislature understand who is attempting to conduct business before them and who is compensating them and in what manner they are being compensated. Failure to register as a lobbyist can operate to influence budgets and legislation in a way that's clearly not intended by the statutory oversight, and it allows someone who fails to register to operate behind closed doors and with no transparency or accountability. Failure to comply with the lobbying laws can result in a corruption of the system, both to the detriment of the public as well as to those who are operating in good faith as members of the legislature. They cannot gauge who is trying to influence them or who is influencing them and on what those contributions are based. In fact, it's the same reason that we require all candidates and all elected officials to comply with the stringent but comprehensive rules under the Office of Campaign and Finance. We allow for contributions in Massachusetts. We encourage that. In fact, we have not gone the route of public campaign finance, but we do require disclosure, and it is the only way that we can ensure that there is some way to tell how legislation and budgets are being influenced. I want to emphasize that by these charges today, they are limited to Mr. Vitale and to WN advisors. We have not implicated the Mass Association of Ticket Brokers or the 3 representatives and 1 senator who were the recipients of contributions over $200. We do not implicate in any way the firm of Vitale and Caterano and Company, who were cooperative with this investigation. We also received cooperation from the Office of the Secretary of State, the Inspector General, the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, as well as the State Ethics Commission. I want to stress also that this is an ongoing investigation. We are announcing these indictments today, and that Mr. Vitale and WN advisors are facing penalties of up to $30,000, as well as up to, for Mr. Vitale, 2 years in the House or a $2,000 fine. His arraignment on these charges is scheduled for Suffolk Superior Court on January 5th.